What's up guys, Christian here with River Pools, and you certainly know by now we specialize in the manufacturing and installation of in-ground fiberglass swimming pools. If your pool is new to you or you're new to your pool, you know what I mean, then you've come to the right place because this entire video series is dedicated to showing you how to operate your in-ground fiberglass swimming pool. In the first episode, we talked about all of the components about your entire pool system. We identified them, explained in general terms what they do and what purpose they serve, and we talked about the general flow of water from your pool to your filter, back to your pool. If you're new to the series and haven't seen that video, we recommend you go back and check that out, as it'll help today's video make a lot more sense. Now, speaking of today's video, here's what we're gonna go over. We're gonna talk about that filtration system in depth, and we're going to show you exactly what you need to do on a regular basis to keep your pool clean and maintained free of debris. This is your pool orientation part 2. I'm not exactly winning points for title creativity here, am I?
No, you're not.
Okay, let's start off by reviewing the flow of water between your pool and your filtration system. The water is going to leave your pool by way of suction lines through your skimmer and possibly your main drain if you have one. It's going to head out to your filter system, be filtered, sanitized before returning to your pool by way of return line or lines for your cascades, bubblers, jets, or water slide, whatever other features you have on your pool. You're going to commonly hear pool professionals refer to these lines as pressure or as discharge lines, but just know that they are all returning filtered and sanitized water back to your pool. Now, what exactly does this filtration process look like? Well, there's 3 phases or 3 different steps in which the pool water gets filtered. 1, 2, and wait a minute. There, 1, 2, and 3. It'll first go through a skimmer, then it'll go through a strainer pot on the front of your pump, and then through the filter itself. Now, on the inside of these devices is a basket for your skimmer, a basket inside your strainer pump, and a cartridge inside the filter. Now, your skimmer basket is designed to capture debris from the surface of your pool water. It's going to catch things like leaves, bugs, frogs, things like that. And you're going to notice on the side that there are 2 flat spots as well as this nifty handle. That's so you can place the basket in the bottom of the skimmer and twist it to lock it in place. As for the basket on the inside of your strainer pot, it looks like this. There's an opening on the front and a closed side on the back, and this allows debris to enter but not to get into the impeller of your pump. There's not going to be much debris in here on a regular basis, but you will find debris in here when you vacuum your pool. Now, lastly, the filter cartridge, it looks like this, which you've seen already, but what this is going to capture is dirt, dust, and oils, things that you can't necessarily see inside your pool water. So the 2 baskets catch the big stuff, and then this catches all the little stuff. Now, let's head over to the skimmer and talk more about it and tell you exactly how that works and functions in and around your pool. Remember, the function of the skimmer is to remove debris from the surface of your pool water, but how can this stationary device serve this entire pool? Well, when your pool was installed, all of the returns were directed in such a way as to create either a whirlpool effect or a hydraulic. The idea behind this is to create movement on the water's surface that moves debris towards the skimmer. Once the debris gets here, it's pulled into the skimmer and held in the basket until you can clean the basket out. Now, what's really important here is to maintain your pool water level at the proper height, because without that, your skimmer cannot function. The water level in your pool should remain at about 3/4 of the way up your skimmer plate. The minimum would be halfway, while the maximum allowable really would be about 1 inch from the top. So 3/4 of the way up is ideal. You see, if your pool water is too full or too high, then debris can't enter the skimmer and therefore cannot capture debris from the surface of your pool. And if it's too low, you run the risk of getting air into your system. And if you have air in your system, your pump will lose prime, and therefore you will not be able to circulate water and get it cleaned and filtered properly.
Ew.
So, if you don't have enough water in your pool, simply put in a garden hose and let it fill up. And if you have too much water in your pool, you're simply going to move the valve facing this tab towards the filter. This allows water to flow into the valve and come out the waistline. So we're doing just like this. When you're done, switch the valve back. And now water can enter the valve and head towards your filter. You're going to utilize the blue backwash hose provided that will allow you to divert water to whatever location you need to on your property. All right, now the strainer pot and the basket inside is the last line of defense to keep debris from going into your pump and then onto your filter. I mentioned this earlier in the video. So we need to know how to get the debris out of here. You're not going to find much in here if you're maintaining your pool water at the proper height and keeping the basket inside your skimmer clean. You will find lots of debris in here, leaves and things, when you manually vacuum your pool, and that's because we're going to use the suction line inside the bottom of the skimmer to hook the vacuum hose to. So again, when you're vacuuming, that's when you're going to find a lot of debris in here. So how exactly do you get to this? Well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to turn the motor on the pump off by pressing the start-stop button on the back of the pump. Then we're going to shut this valve off. We're going to turn the tab to the off position, meaning we're going to put the word off towards the suction lines coming from the pool, and this prevents water from flowing towards the pump and filter. This step is really important if your pool is set in a position higher on your property than your pump and your filter system. If you forget to do this, water will rush from your pool towards the strainer pot. You stand a good chance of getting really wet by doing this. Okay, let me explain this one more time, a little bit differently. If your pool is set at a higher elevation than your filter system, so your pool is up here, your filter system is down here, gravity is going to want to pull water from the pool and rush it towards your strainer pot. So we have already isolated water from coming in on this side, right, through the suction lines by putting the off tab towards the pipe. So we've prevented water from entering the strainer pot from the front side, but there is a chance that it could come in through the back side of the pump. And in which case, it may or may not be necessary in your situation. It all depends on the height of the water and where your filter system is located. But if you find that water rushes in through the backside, the way you isolate that is by taking this three-way valve and the off tab on it, face it towards the filter. And now you prevent water from flowing on either direction on your pump. You will find out pretty quickly whether this is a necessary step for you or not. However, if you find it to be, now you know exactly what to do. The next thing we're going to do, now that we have the pump off, the valve closed, is we're going to give this tab a bump. We're going to turn the lid to the left and pull the lid off. If that's too difficult to do with your hands, you can use a light rubber mallet and give it a few taps. We're going to pull the lid off, and it's always a good idea to give the O-ring inside a quick inspection just to make sure it's in good shape. Now that gurgling we hear is air and water moving around the filter on the backside of the pump, and that's normal. We're going to pull the basket out, clean out any debris, and then we're going to place the basket back in place. Now you're going to notice an opening on the front side of the basket, and that needs to face towards the suction lines. To make sure that you do this and line it properly, there's a slot right here on the front side of the basket that aligns with the tab on the inside of the strainer pot. It's really important to align those two things, as that makes sure the closed side of the basket faces the back of the pump and prevents debris from entering into the impeller. The last thing we're going to do is we're going to place the cap back on, pull it towards you to snug it up, open the valve again, and then turn the motor back on by pressing the start-stop button again. Your pump is going to ramp up at a very high speed to get the system going again, and it'll settle back down to a normal operating speed after a few minutes. Now, in the event that your pump loses prime during this process, you simply need to take a bucket of water, pour into the strainer pot before turning the pump back on. So no worries there. The next thing we're going to take a look at is the filter. Okay, so we're standing by the filter now. Now, unlike the skimmer basket and the strainer pot, which we can visibly see when they're dirty and they need to be cleaned, we can't see inside the filter to determine if the cartridge itself is dirty and needs to be cleaned. So we're going to have to rely on this pressure gauge right here that's at the top of your filter. Now, under normal operating conditions, your pump is going to be running at a pretty low speed, and we're going to want to speed that pump up to determine what the pressure is at a much higher rate. So you're going to go to your automation panel and press auxiliary 2 or aux 2, it's AUX 2 inside your automation panel, and that is preset to increase the speed of your pump to about 2,800 to 3,000 RPMs, or rotations per minute. So that's going to increase the flow of water and the pressure inside your filter. Now, after doing that, we're going to check the gauge, and if the needle on the gauge is reading higher than 10 psi or pounds per square inch, then we know that the cartridge is dirty and needs to be cleaned. So head to your auxiliary panel, hit aux 2, auxiliary 2, and then come back and monitor that needle. So let's say you've done that. You've increased the speed of your pump through your automation panel. We've identified that the filter indeed needs to be cleaned because the PSI is greater than 10. So how do we get inside and do this? The first thing we're going to do is we're going to shut off the pump by pressing the start-stop button under the lid on the back. Just like we did with the strainer pot when we cleaned it, we're going to close the valve and put the off tab facing towards the suction lines to prevent water from flowing into the system. Then we're going to release the air from the filter itself. We're going to let the pressure off. Then we're going to grab the ring itself, and we're going to be undoing this and separating the two halves of the filter housing. So there's two little buttons on the underside. We're going to depress those and turn counterclockwise, and the ring should slide right off. We're going to set that aside for now. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to separate the two halves, and this gets a little tricky. Sometimes it sticks a bit. So you're going to take one hand and place on the opposite side. There's two handles on the top. Grab the opposite side and take your second hand and place it right on that seam, and we're going to gently pull until the two halves separate. Okay? Looks like this. So we're going to set this aside for now and check out the filter. Okay, now that we have the housing off the top, we're going to notice two things on the inside. We're going to see the filter cartridge itself and then the air bleed sock. Now, what this little rascal does is it keeps debris from entering into that air relief valve that we loosened up right before we pulled the lid off. If we get debris caught in there, then we don't have the ability to release the pressure or bleed air from the system. And remember, too much air in our pump and filter system is not a good thing. So this little rascal is important. So we're going to go ahead and pull him off now and get him hosed off, get him cleaned up, and put him right back in place. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to pull the dirty filter out. Now, we recommend that everyone have two filters on hand, because once we pull a dirty one out, we want to put a clean one back in place. So by pulling this out, you simply grab your fingers, stick your fingers in a couple pleats on either side, place your thumbs on the two tabs on top, and pull up. And then loosen just like that. Now, I'm going to ask Patrick to toss me this clean filter. Huh. Beautiful. And we're going to set the two side by side. Okay, the reason we recommend having two filters is that once you pull a dirty one out, you've got a clean one to put right back inside the housing and get you up and running that much quicker. But the second reason is that we're going to hose this dirty cartridge off to get debris out, but we're going to set it aside to dry. And as it dries, the pores inside the fabric are going to loosen up, and when they loosen up, they're going to release even more debris. so that the next time you place this one inside the housing, you hose it off one more time, and that gets even more dirt and debris out of this filter. This extends the life of your filter cartridges, allowing you to go much farther before having to replace them. So with this clean one that has been dried and then rinsed off once more, we're going to place it back inside the filter housing in just a moment. We're also going to take a look down inside to make sure there is no debris. Sometimes stuff sneaks in here, and so the way we clean that out is just simply taking a water hose and spraying on the inside, and then on the bottom side we're going to open up the drain to let that dirty water out. So just check the inside, give it a quick glance. This is a pretty rare thing, but just in case there is debris in the bottom, easily hosed out and drained with the plug on the back. We're going to take a look at the cartridge before we place it back in, and note this side up so we know exactly how to place it back inside the filter. Fantastic. And one last tip, just to keep your cartridges straight in case they are the same color, you can simply take a marker and write 1 and 2, indicate you know exactly which one you're working with. All right. We're going to place the top of the filter housing back into position, and we're going to snug it down by simply putting a little pressure to get it down as tight as we can by hand. We're going to place the ring back on top, and we're going to rotate counterclockwise until we hear it kind of drop into place, and you'll feel it as well. So there, dropped in place. We're going to tighten it down until it clicks. We hear that click. Okay, we're ready to go. We can now open up the valve again before our pump and press the button on the motor itself to turn everything back on. We're going to let it run for just a moment with the air bleed assembly open until water shoots out. And what we're doing is allowing air to escape the filter cartridge, the filter housing rather, to get air out of the system, and this could take a few moments. So here we've got a little water that's beginning to come out. And so now we can turn the air bleed valve to the off position. The filter is clean, the system is running, we're good to go. Okay, so there you have it. Now you know everything you need to know to properly maintain your pool and keep it free from debris on a regular basis. You know what level your water needs to be maintained at in your pool. You know how to clean that strainer pot on the front of your pump, and you know when and how to clean the filter to keep your pool fresh and clean. But a clean pool requires filtering and sanitizing, and so that's what we're going to discuss in the next video, and we're going to talk a little pool chemistry. If this video was helpful, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Facebook and Instagram for more educational pool content from us here at River Pools. I'm Christian, we'll see you in the next episode. Catch the wave.